Kentucky state lawmakers braved the wintry weather last week to start the 30-day legislative session, formalizing leadership and committee assignments and welcoming new members. 22 new members were sworn in to the Kentucky General Assembly on Tuesday, including 16 in the House and 6 in the Senate. Tonight, we introduce you to a Navy SEAL combat veteran gun store owner who frequently dons a cowboy hat. State Senator Aaron Reed has been working to get to Frankfort for 3 years. After a redistricting shuffle and a tight primary last May, the Republican was hired by voters in the 7th State Senate District that encompasses Anderson, Henry, part of Jefferson, and Shelby counties. My interview with State Senator Aaron Reed as we continue our profiles of the legislature's freshman class of 2025. Talk to us about your background, your professional background, your civic engagement, and why that led you to pursue a seat in the Kentucky State Senate.
How far you want to go back? I mean, we can start off, in the early days. I started off my life of service, if you will, in the Cub Scouts. Started off Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, became an Eagle Scout. And one thing my dad always had told me, and he was an Eagle Scout, and a former Marine, as well as a state trooper. He retired after 28 years as a trooper here in Frankfort, but he always told me, he was a good influence on me. He always said, America is free because good men serve. So I always knew I was going to join the military. As soon as I discovered what the Navy SEALs were all about, I was all in, and I didn't look back. To be a Navy SEAL, you have to make it your goal in life, your only goal in life, to make it through that training. I try to tell new guys that, and sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But, as you know, the attrition rate's pretty high in the SEAL teams, and it's tough. So if you don't go into that adventure or that quest with everything you got, you're going to have a hard time. It was the toughest thing I've ever had to do in my life, absolutely. And here we are today. I did 22 and a half years in the Navy. Over half of that was active duty time, and then I switched into the reserves later in my career. In 2020 and 2021, roughly, I'd come home and I was working my way out of the reserves, and we were seeing the country go in an odd direction, and I was leaving the service from one branch and trying to figure out what the next chapter was going to be in life. And oddly enough, I had a lot of people calling me, hey, you need to run for this position. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I'm listening. And sometimes that's how God, tells you what to do. He sends people to tell you. I started my campaign to run for Senate, and then, it was kind of a long haul, because in January of 22, the General Assembly voted to change up the map a little bit. We got redistricted. So my district went from District 20 to District 7. And with that, it basically, my election went away because it was an odd number instead of an even number, so it kicked it down the road 2 years. And I just went into marathon mode at that point and was basically soft campaigning and, spreading the word on faith, family, and freedom, which is what I ran on.
And because you've been committed for a long time, what is it that you really want to fight for while you're here?
There's so many. There's so many things. I was blessed enough when I rolled in here to, I was given some pretty good committee assignments. The biggest being the Veterans, Military Affairs, Public Protection, VMAP. I was given the vice chairmanship my freshman year here. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that a lot. Also, education. I'm on the Education Committee, Judiciary Committee, and Agriculture Committee. I couldn't come up here without being on the Ag Committee. My folks back home wouldn't hear it, so I got to take care of the farmers back home, absolutely. I'm really big on the, getting the income tax down to 3.5, and lower than that, actually. 3.5 is what we're going to do this year, and then getting it down to 0 would be pretty awesome for our economy. I'm working with my fellow senators, my colleagues, on kind of developing a plan where we can help bring some fitness options to our schools, because right now there's not a whole lot, and recess is seems to be getting phased out. Also, with one of the things that's important to me in education is trade schools. My long-term goal is when I leave here, I'd like to have some kind of stamp on that I've improved that situation where kids can graduate high school and have more options, be certified to go into the workforce.
When you think about the reverence of this place, right? I mean, the institution, it's not just a set of buildings and a complex, but it is it is more than that, right? It is about.
It's like holy ground here.
It is
almost.
like sacred ground, right? Is that how you view it?
I do. When you walk into the Senate chamber or the House chambers, it really, you feel the history coming down on you. When you walk into the Capitol period and look up at the paintings of our forefathers and those who came to Kentucky and settled here and made it what it is today, it's really inspiring.
Yeah, yeah. You intimidated by this atmosphere at all?
You know, a little bit. You know, mostly respect it. You know, I respect it. I guess intimidation wouldn't be the case, because I've been intimidated by other things that you know, come here, they can't kill me, right? It's they can't take my birthday away. And
Right.
you know, you hear these phrases, you know, are you going to be loved in Frankfurt and hated at home, or loved at home and hated in Frankfurt? And there's got to be a middle ground on that, to where, you know, you can work with your folks here, your colleagues, and do the best possible for we the people back home.